I was in Kiev in October after the start of the war, and was there when cruise missiles were landing, so I've had a little bit of experience of the war. But what is so strange is the way superficially life seems to go on as normal, but then if you look under the surface, you can see it's a very, very serious situation. And whereas last year there was more optimism about a counterattack, that optimism's gone, and Russia now seems to be stronger, and there is no end in sight, so it's very serious. And of course, tens of thousands of people have been killed. I was at Superheroes this morning, the rehabilitation center, which is fantastic, world class, fantastic. But to see so many men with their legs and arms blown off, what for? What for? For a few stupid imperialist old men in the Kremlin. I mean, it's horrible. But obviously, but the thing that always, again, since the war started, of course the war started in 2014, the resilience and determination of people here is extraordinary. And what is always unique to Ukraine is the volunteerism. The fact so many people are giving money, making camouflage netting, as I was in First Republic a few weeks ago, making drones. I mean, it's fantastic. Because, of course, the state is weak, the state is poor, and the cooperative voluntary activity of Ukrainians is quite extraordinary. But in a sense, I would have expected that, because I understood Ukraine a little bit, having come here for so long. And I could see there is a tremendous, for many Ukrainians, there is this very, very strong tradition of independence. In English, we would call it bloody-mindedness, stubborn individualism despite everything. So that is amazing.
Thank you. Are you going to return to Ukraine and someday maybe visit Kharkiv?
Well, my wife would not let me. I have to pay some attention to my wife's feelings. I would like to come. I have no worries. I really am not particular. I'm sure if bombs are landing, I'd be frightened like everybody else. But, I know the statistical probability of being killed is actually small. I ride a bicycle every day in London in heavy traffic. That is probably almost as dangerous. All risk is relative. No, I'd like to come to Kharkiv, but I cannot inflict that on my life. The first time I came after the war had started, I pretended to my wife I was only in Poland, but then she discovered I'd been to Ukraine, and I cannot really lie again. I have to tell her the truth.
What do you think about our medical reform? Is it in progress? What needs to be done to achieve some good results?
Two steps forward, one step backward, discerning. Obviously, Ukraine is an unequal country. You go out to some of the small provincial towns, but the hospitals are not very well equipped. But there are now some very well equipped, mainly private hospitals. From my perspective, there is still a big problem with bad education, both of medical students and of doctors after leaving medical school, and it is very corrupt. The fact that patients in the government hospitals have to pay the doctors under the table, I think we have to accept at the moment, because doctors are paid so little, they need some extra money. It is not satisfactory, but it is a temporary necessity. But what does trouble me greatly is that in many medical schools still students can bribe the teachers to pass their exams, and when you are looking for a postgraduate training, you have to pay to get into a department, and that sort of corruption, I think, is very bad. To live in a society where something as important as medicine, where people's lives depend upon it, you can be a hopeless doctor, you haven't done any studies, and you can pay money to pass the exam. That's bad.
And what do you love about the Ukraine in general? I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about, sightseeing.
Well, I mean, Lviv is one of my favorites. It's probably my favorite city in Eastern Europe. I'm afraid particularly since the pandemic and the war, because all the tourists have gone. So it is not crowded, but obviously tourism is important for money and for the local economy. It is a beautiful, beautiful city. And I like Kiev as well. And Podil is delightful, and the views over the Dnipro it's a grand city. Years ago I was in Crimea, which is very beautiful on the coast. But I like Ukraine. And the Carpathians I know, I've been to Kamenets, Podolsky, places like that. There is lots of history, many beautiful places. So again, when the war, please God, has ended, there is a great opportunity for tourism in Ukraine. Albania is a country I know very well. I've worked there for many years. And that now is doing very well as a tourist, with a tourist economy.
We're coming from the city that is constantly under attack. Mm-hmm. And maybe you have some, words. I know that a lot of people, they really love your books and love what you've done to Ukraine. Maybe you want to say something to them.
Well, there is a word in French which we quote in French and English as courage, have courage, be brave, good luck, all those wrapped together, courage mon frère. But the Ukrainians are strong. I am genuinely sure we have a duty to be optimistic, but I cannot believe Russia will win. I cannot believe that. Obviously, we must have doubts about Donetsk and Luhansk now. Whether Ukraine will regain that land is very uncertain. And the same for Crimea. But I have unshakable confidence that Ukraine will survive and become a strong country with the rule of law and a civil society. But it's hard work and very difficult. And of course, what the war is really about, and we all know that, is that a successful Ukraine, a successful democratic civil society Ukraine, is a deadly threat to Putin's kleptocracy. He dresses it up about Slavic, and Ukraine was never a nation, and Ukraine is little Russia and part of Russia. That's all. It's all bullshit and window dressing. He is a mafia boss, he is a gangster, he has billions of dollars. He knows, there are many Russians who do not like him. There were serious demonstrations against Putin some years ago. That is why he has invaded Ukraine. He does not want to see Ukraine succeed. So that is why it's so important for all of the world. The triumph for Putin is a triumph for 19th century imperialism, no rules-based world order. It'll be a terrible setback for the whole world. It'll be a victory for Xi Jinping and North Korea and Iran and all these terrible autocratic beastly men.